and welcome to the 2D podcast. My name is Ronan.
And my name's Dave.
We're two kids looking to get in the animation industry.
Please hire us.
Alright, everybody, so today we're doing something special, something a little bit out of the ordinary. We're doing a debate. And what this debate is talking about is we decided the subject be what animation style is superior. And when we say style, we divide it into two categories where it's both long form and short form. Do you want to explain what those forms are to the audience, Dave?
Well, long form is, are you talking about long form as in a continuing story?
When I say long form, I mean more just like, not only in terms of the story, but I mean in terms of the animation. Like there's limited animation and then there's more complex animation. And I think that limited would fall more into short and more complex would fall into long, is what I mean.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, and also we were going to debate about the narrative type, which is better in animation. Like, is it better, is a narrative type better when it's just short and a one-shot story?
Yeah.
It better if it's a longer continuing story over different episodes.
Yes, exactly. So we're debating which one is, I guess you can say, superior or at least better. And that's what we'll be talking about. So I'm giving the floor to David to speak for the next few minutes about his point. So go on ahead, David.
All right, thank you, Ronan, and thank you for allowing me to be on this debate.
Of course.
So my claim is that the superior form of animation, or the form that fits animation the best, is a short episode that is a one-shot story. And when I say one-shot story, what I mean is a story that does not continue. It's self-contained. So my basic contention is that animation serves this form better because of the intensity of its very nature. Its nature is frame by frame, and its default is pretty much fast. You have to draw more frames or have more frames for it to be slow. And the majority of animation has been in this form, not just because of how tedious it is to produce, but because the very nature of the medium caters to this simple and direct way of storytelling, and it also caters to outlandish storylines because you can do many things that you simply cannot do in live action. So this obviously favors humorous plots because many things you can just get away with shock value. Think of Family Guy and South Park, particularly South Park, where the joke is that every episode, or it used to be, every episode this kid Kenny would die. And the creators were interviewed, and they said, in live action, that just wouldn't be funny. It wouldn't be funny to have a real kid die every episode. But since it's just paper, everyone knows it's just a piece of paper, and therefore it's funny. It has a lot of shock value. So animation can get away with a lot of these crazy jokes because everyone knows it's just a drawing and it's just a cartoon, so you're not afraid for anyone's safety or anything. So I think that in and of itself kind of lends it to a very short, funny little video or little short film rather than a long, overarching or arching, I don't know how to pronounce that, storyline over many episodes. So basically my argument can be summed up into two categories. Animation suits shorter form humorous stories because of its fast-paced nature. Its default is fast. You need to create more frames to go slow. And number two, animation is suited to self-contained stories that are not really serious because it's by its very nature facilitates scenarios that could never happen in real life, like I said. So that is basically my argument, and I would challenge my opponent to tear down those points and put up his own points. I don't think he can do it.
All right, so thank you. All right, that was some really good points. So I like to thank the debate commission. I like to thank the citizens of the United States for having me on this debate. And my claim is that the long form of animation is the superior one. And the reason why I say that, similar in the vein of what David was saying, but in a different channel, is that the longer form of animation strives to be a full cinematic experience rather than a throwaway gimmick. And the long form animation is more cinematic because that's what animation is, or rather should be, cinema in its purest form. It's a medium where artists can meticulously plan out each frame of the film and each frame's relationship to one another. Anything less than that is depriving the audience of what they deserve. So, as I understand short-form animation, it's animation that cuts corners and puts fundamental principles to the side in favor of simply getting a product out to the mainstream. And this is where animation has its most faults. As I see short-form animation, it leaves too much room for executives to ship off production to developing countries to be done at barely substantial wages. It's the flattening of expressive capabilities as well as imaginative perception of audiences. And it's the substitution of meaningful and artistic content with flashy, trending, and sometimes straight embarrassing filler. Limited animation only strives to serve the bottom line without realizing anything above it. And as Dave points out, there are notable animations that do have limited formats, namely South Park and Family Guy. Now, while these episodes, these shows may have artistic merit, I argue that they simply don't have the same potential as other animation that adopts the long style format. Now, when you look at those shows, what are they most known for? They're most known for very exploitative and very embarrassing content. A lot of their entertainment value is derived off of gore. It's derived off of shock value, and I feel like in many ways that has devalued what animation can be in the eyes of the public, at least. Now, in contrast, I feel even in the realm of television, there are still examples of long form that can subvert this. And what I mean by that, or rather an example of that, would be Samurai Jack. Now, the animation itself can be thought of as limited, but everything surrounding that is the opposite of limited. Think of the character design. Think of the plot. Think of the storyboarding. It's very, very meticulously thought out. Not only is it very well thought out, it's very well visioned. It takes from film noir. It takes from westerns. It takes from old samurai films. It is a collective of all these different sources of inspiration. And occasionally it is sprinkled with the standard action fare, and maybe even a touch of gore here and there. But it's still, in my opinion, a much higher level of art than what South Park and Family Guy can offer. And also, besides simply the narrative side of things, the animation itself, the pure craft of animation, I feel like, is also something to be valued. Namely, it gives it more life. Now, when we talk about Family Guy and or South Park, it's known for very limited animation style. Animation that, while it probably does require some level of skill, it can be done by most people in the industry. It doesn't require expertise. Now, what a more complex animation can give, and I'm not advocating for more, old-fashioned style. I'm open to many styles, but I'm just saying the more effort, the better. It can offer a way to become more transfixed. It can be modeled into our everyday lives. It can have more value, therefore. And animation is something that's inseparable to our lives. We can continue to model ourselves after Family Guy and South Park, or we can look to the future, and we can look to be heroes that want to battle the throes of evil that permeates our society. So that's my argument.
Wow, I have a few responses to that argument. First of all, I think we basically agree that with regard to the cutting corners and cheapening of animation, selling it off, sending it off overseas, and getting it animated over there. I do agree with you that that is not the best kind of animation we can be making, but I think as far as the point that I made in your response to it, my point was not that the limited form of the animation degrades the medium. I agree with you with that, but it was that this kind of narrative that Family Guy and South Park, well, actually not South Park in its modern form, because it does have a lot of continuing stories, but I don't really like them. I like the older episodes. Animation serves these self-contained episodes better than longer form continuing stories. And I think my point still holds, because even if the animation of Family Guy and South Park was more complex, I think that the jokes would still hold up, and the animation would serve these jokes better than if you did them in a live-action film or TV show. I think a lot of the gags, even though some of them may be in poor taste, do hold up better with this animation style, and I think my point still holds.
Okay, so now I know what to attack, at least. All right, so when you say the short form, when you're talking about, well, let me ask you this: how would you? When I say long episodic narratives, I'm talking about. I'm not simply talking about an uncontained, format, in juxtaposition to what you're saying. I'm talking about something that really, that goes further than what, each episode has to provide. And maybe they can have, and maybe they can't, maybe each episode can, have its own arc, of course. But I'm saying that there needs to be parts of each episode that contributes to a wider message that the show is telling, wider story that the show is telling, than simply just it's simply just rinsing and washing everything out after the end of each episode. I believe that makes the medium more disposable, and it makes it more of a commodity than simply an art form. So what I'm saying is that I believe that you're holding this, this way of storytelling too high, just too much, and you're giving it too much credit. And I feel like you haven't defended your position on that enough to convince me that that it should be disregarded.
Well, that's a valid point, but I think what I like about that form of storytelling is that it brings something completely new to the table. Like in South Park, you can have characters die and get bludgeoned and all this gore happened, and people laugh, whereas in a live-action show, you just couldn't do that. And with animation, you really have that suspension of disbelief that you just can't get in other forms. So I think by that very nature, animation does support this kind of storytelling more. And I remember my argument was not that self-contained narratives are just better than continuing narratives. My argument was that animation supports self-contained, wacky narratives better, and I think it does because while it does also support continuing narratives, I think with the former, it really just is a raft for that kind of storytelling that I don't think could be supported on most other mediums. So,
okay.
But I think you do make some good and valid points.
Okay, so the only thing I outright disagree with what you're saying is that it brings something new to the table. In fact, there's nothing new about self-containment in animation, about short story formats in animation. That has been around since animation started. It's the earliest examples of animation are that, and the earliest examples of more episodic formats are that as well. Think Looney Tunes. Think Bugs Bunny. There wasn't like if he got married at the end of one cartoon, he didn't show up married at the start of the next cartoon. They started completely new. So it's nothing new, is what I'm trying to say. Now, what you're saying about it does something that live action can't do. You are right. You really can't rinse and repeat. But then again, think of shows that think of shows that actually do rinse and repeat. The closest example I can think of is It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. It does a lot of things that cartoons would do. It really it has these wild short, self-contained episodes that are more likely disregarded by the next episode. If any of these things happen in the real world, if these characters actually existed in the real world, they would spend the rest of the series just getting over the what happened in the first episode. So it is there's only so much disbelief I think that the audience can contain. And I also like to clarify that we're not simply talking about what fits the medium better, but what would serve the medium better. And what I feel like, if artists really tried and pursue and try to pursue what a more naturalistic form of animation, I feel like, while still respecting what animation can accomplish, then I feel like we would ultimately see a new generation of wildly exciting animation.
Well, I completely agree with you on your last point. Oh, are you done talking?
Yes.
Okay. I completely agree on you with your last point, but with regard to the first point, I think you misunderstood me when I was saying animation, this kind of self-contained storytelling brings something new to the table. I was talking about the level of suspension of disbelief that it brings to the table. Like you mentioned, It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia and how it's a live-action cartoon. I think the fact that you said it's a live-action cartoon just bespeaks the fact that cartoons do this the best because, just the fact that I've never watched It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, so I'm just going off of what you're saying.
Okay.
But, the fact that they have these outlandish storylines and maybe a character dies in one episode and is alive in the next, and you relate that to cartoons is just kind of points to the fact that cartoons really embody and really give this kind of storytelling its ultimate home. And I think if It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia was animated, you could probably get away with more of that kind of storytelling. In a live action TV series, you could it's crazy when a character dies and then comes back to life in the next episode, or the slate is wiped clean, and you have to suspend your disbelief that maybe a character got married and is not married in the next episode. Well, in a cartoon, in cartoons like Tom and Jerry, you'll have him getting, a lawnmower run over his back, and then, all the skin is ripped off his back, and the very next shot is he's completely fine. So I don't think you could do that in live action. Maybe you could. But anyway, that is my thoughts on your comment.
Okay, cool. All right, so it seems like what the type of animation narrative that you're going for is borderline surreal. It's it can exist out of the fabric of what can be considered real or possible. And I want to say that if I were to be a director of a show, like a showrunner, that's not the kind of show that I would run, because I want there. I feel like that is a disservice to not only animation but to the art form of film itself, because it because I feel like what people should be watching right now is more tethered, is more grounded. I feel like, not only should the characters have weight, the narrative should have weight as well. So when I hear of you talking about, someone dying in one episode and then coming back in the next, I just, I lose interest. I feel like if someone should die, then they should die. And then we should focus on, like, what the characters feel, about that loss, because I feel like it's not only not only do we really, like, ultimately reject that, it's damaging. Like, I feel like it would, lose our sense of, like, reality, or at least our sense of, like, morale, I guess, in a wider sense, if we become numbed out to, like, the true meaning of loss. So that's my stance on that. And I want to bring another example to the table. I want to bring up Adventure Time. Now, the reason why I cite Adventure Time as being one of my favorite animations ever is simply because of its overarching, nature. Now, granted, it does have one-off episodes. In fact, a lot of their episodes can be thought of as one-offs. It still exists in one ethereal, plane, so have you, meaning that, the actions of one, or like the events of one episode, previous, does not, simply dissolve, because the next episode started. It's still there. It's taken accounted for, and anything else that's not taken accounted for is taken as a mistake, by the creator's fault. And I believe that, whenever you talk about Adventure Time with someone else, they talk about it for ages because there's so much to talk about. And I feel like you wouldn't have that same discussion with another person, because it's more like, oh yeah, that was, that they forgot about that in the next episode. So I just I feel like it creates a greater summary for everything else, especially during the later episodes of, say, Adventure Time. Like, things start to wrap up well together, like any good television show or film should, in that matter. So there you go. That's my side.
Well, I think that's a really good point, but I'm surprised that you used Adventure Time, because Adventure Time, at least the early episodes, were the epitome of surreal and non-realistic animation. I mean, Jake the dog, take Jake the dog, for instance. I mean, he gets out of almost any situation by just using his stretching powers. And didn't he have babies with a unicorn, and the babies grew older than him in the span of a few minutes, and then they became old people? I mean, in my opinion, I think there's a lot of unexplained going-ons in Adventure Time, even more so than Family Guy. But I think I do understand what you're saying. In general, it's that Adventure Time is tethered to some form of reality, even if it's not our own. And whereas shows like Family Guy, South Park, they just don't have any real form of reality, and they just can have someone die and then be like, oh, they're back, whoops. I do think that there is a divide there, because it really depends on if you want to have a real universe in your cartoon, or you want the cartoon story to serve the joke. I think in Family Guy and South Park and shows, and a lot of YouTube animations like SpongeBob parodies and stuff, it mostly just serves the joke. Like, if it's funny to have a character die and then come back, then then they'll have it happen because they can. But again, my point wasn't that that was not damaging. But my point, to depict death in such a, I guess, wanton way. But my point was that animation serves that kind of storytelling the best because, if you look at South Park, Family Guy, and even Adventure Time, I do not think you could do any of those shows in any other medium except for animation.
So you do have valid points. When I said Adventure Time was tethered to a reality, I did not mean that it was a very scientific reality. I guess it's like kind of like Dungeons and Dragons. You make up the rules as you go on, or even if that's how Dungeons and Dragons work. I don't know, but you make the rules up as you go on. I'm just saying that there was a wider attempt to solidify the rules and then respect them as the series went on, acknowledging them as they went on as well, in response to what you're saying about serving the joke, I think that that is not the only route to go if one wants to achieve humor. As we all should know, humor is a very subjective, thing, and I think that by no means does one have to really bend the rules and reality of a cartoon universe to simply serve the joke. I think the idea of simply serving the joke is just to commodify the product even further. Think like, why do all these things, why do SpongeBob plushies sell so well? I know I'm making the joke about plushies, but why do they sell so well? Because they make these jokes, which mind you, they are really meant to appeal to children. They make these jokes that children will laugh at, or children will laugh at not knowing any better, to sell products, and I'm not saying I'm not making the claim that comedy isn't good or comedy isn't meant for animation. I'm just saying that simply serving the joke by bending the rules of reality is not the only way to go. I feel like what can be possible is that you can create a very tethered reality, whether it's based in the rules of the real world or not. You can do that and still create these scenarios, these very humorous scenarios that can produce a joke, not simply serve a joke. And you can do that and even still, sell plushies based on that. I'm just saying that, simply making a joke is not a good enough excuse to bending the rules of reality. There should be something, that's more solid out there, that's more respectable.
Well, I agree with almost everything that you said. I do think about the idea that the whole thing shouldn't serve the joke is, I know, well, of course it's not the only way to go. And I do think that, I don't think it's necessarily cheapening it, because I think that if you look at comedians and, a stand-up comic, I mean, almost literally everything that comes out of that person's mouth is just to serve the joke, unless they're making some other statement. But anyway, even if everything you said is correct, that just making something to serve the joke is cheapening the whole thing, and it's not the way to go. That doesn't touch my point at all, my original contention, because my contention was that animation serves that kind of storytelling better, that kind of complete suspension of disbelief better. I was just saying that the medium serves it. I wasn't saying that it's the right way to go or the wrong way to go. Mm. So I think my original contention still stands.
Okay, and you know what? If that's the stance that you take, I'm completely respecting it. And if that's the way that you want to go, that's simply the way you want to go. I guess this difference that we take is kind of similar to the difference in like how we draw each other on the thumbnails. Like I try to make myself very very real, as in like I make clear of like my anatomy, and like I try to actually make it close to like a 3D rendering almost, while you are like a lot more flat, and you're like a lot more like you have, I guess you can even say, more character as well. While mine is like it's more like to the point, and that's that's two halves make a whole. So there you go.
Yeah. I think. I mean, you have to say that it's not. There's no one right way of doing it. So I mean, I think that like if you want to do, I really enjoy a lot of cartoons that are just very. I don't even know what you call it, very long form and have a really strong narrative. I really enjoy those, and there's some cartoons that don't have that I don't enjoy. So I think it's really just a matter of opinion, but so I think I won the debate.
Yes. Well, you know what? The debate's not over yet. I still have some more stuff to talk about.
Okay.
Well, I want to ask you, Dave, and I invite you to ask anything of me as well. So my question is, imagine you had to propose you work at an animation studio, and you are asked to propose an idea for a show. Now, knowing everything that you shared with us, what would be the idea that you share? What would be the premise?
Oh, a premise of a show that I would?
Yeah.
Sure. I don't have a Well, I think if your question is really that, like, how would you basically? I think I don't know if this is what you're asking, but maybe you can confirm this. I think what you're asking is how would you propose a show that doesn't really have a strong plot, and it's just like jokes and things like that.
Yeah, assuming that like the executives want that, I guess.
Well, first of all, I think that there are shows like that, so they have been proposed and been successful. Like, I mean, you could think about Ren and Stimpy, Beavis and Butthead, Family Guy, even South Park. They're not really. They don't have any overarching story to them other than, well, it's a family.
But there's a theme. There's a theme that goes with them. I think it's like, I don't know. I guess Family Guy is kind of like. Well, maybe
it's
not
like
Family
a ripoff
Guy.
of The Simpsons.
Yeah, honestly. But like The Simpsons about like, family dynamics and like, and how they are more or less influenced by, I guess, like a larger socioeconomic sphere.
But that's not what they that's not what the guy proposed it as. I think the thing is, a lot of these shows like South Park, I think now they have you can really draw a lot out of their narrative.
Let's look at what their IMDb pages say. But anyways, as you were saying.
What?
As you were saying.
Yeah, well, I think with a show that is that doesn't have a really strong plot and it's more about the characters and the jokes and stuff, I think you would have to submit a pilot film or a pilot script and sort of a demonstration, as a lot of like The Simpsons was already short films on the Tracy Ullman show before they made it.
That's true. Yeah.
And Family Guy was already a short film, and South Park was already a short film before they made it into a TV show. So I think you would have to make a film or something like that.
Okay, so South Park, the log line is Follow the misadventures of 4 irreverent grade schoolers in the quiet, dysfunctional town of South Park, Colorado. And then
That's it?
Yeah, and that's it. It's actually pretty short. The
Yeah.
satiric adventures of a working class family in the misfit city of Springfield. I would assume that probably like the Adventure Time logline is pretty similar too. Because it's like, a boy and his dog, in the land of Ooh. Yeah, 12-year-old boy and his best friend, wise 28-year-old dog with magical powers, go on a series of surreal adventures with each other in a remote future. I feel like any TV show, any animation, regardless, like if they're trying to be deep, they probably add the word surreal onto it. I feel like,
Yeah.
because they're just like, oh, this show is deep, man. How do we show that? What's that word? That kind of means surreal, and they're like, that's it.
Yeah.
And then the executive's like, shut up and take my money.
So let me ask you a question.
Yeah, go on ahead.
Okay. I didn't think of the question yet, so let me think of it. I guess my question, I think I know the answer. What I was going to ask is, no, I'm not going to ask that because
okay.
The question is like, how would you pitch?
Pussy.
How would you?
I'm just kidding. Go on ahead.
How would you pitch a narrative TV show? But it's obvious how you would do that because you would have an elevator pitch. You would have a lot of material to just talk about.
Yeah, assuming that maybe I shouldn't have put you on the spot, but yeah, I guess does require a lot of like deeper thinking and deeper knowledge about what the characters actually are. But you do have characters of your own, right?
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah, I think you should have developed characters, but maybe you should focus on presenting the characters more. But wait, I got a question.
Yeah.
What if you had a TV show that was a narrative, like continuing story? So here's my thing about narratives. And I know you're working on one that is narrative based, which I actually like yours, and I think maybe I like it. It's more palpable for me because the episodes are shorter. But don't go by me because I didn't like Stranger Things because my attention span is too short.
You didn't like Breaking Bad either. You didn't want to watch Breaking Bad.
Yeah, I didn't. Yeah, so don't go by me because those are the most popular shows ever. So, but anyway, my question would be if you had a TV series like when I first watched Stranger Things, I really wanted to just see the ending. Yeah. But I had to wait for it's still not over. It's 3-4 years later. And my question would be if you had a show that had a storyline that was you really had an ending in mind the entire time, but somewhere along the line, in season 4 or 3 or 5, people were there was some problem with the story, something didn't work, or people maybe guessed the ending or something. What would you do if your cover was blown or something like that?
What would you do? I feel like there has been many scenarios people TV people had to deal with like that. Cover is blown. What do you mean? Just generally speaking, the TV series got stale?
No, not. Well, that happens with every TV series if it goes on for too long. But no, I'm talking about if you have a plot an intricate plot where you actually you had stuff in the beginning episodes that were relevant at the end.
Okay.
And then someone for instance guessed the ending. What if I think this is how it ends, and then you're oh crap, what do I do now? Because the person people guessed the ending.
Well, I mean, I think that's just an issue of writing. If it is really that easy to guess, if it's just one person.
Well, no, I mean, if it's a big thing, they guess and people are that makes so much sense because that accounts for this and this and this in the beginning episodes. Would you go ahead with the ending or would you change?
Here's what I'll say. So, in the issue of writing, I feel like predictability is a writer's great enemy. I feel like if it ever happens that a series, ends was guessed prematurely, and they're like, "Oh yeah, is this gonna happen?" I feel like that probably wouldn't happen because there would be like so many different theories floating around that even like if the person like even if one or two people were right, they would probably not be really like they probably wouldn't be heard very well, or like they just wouldn't they would just be like buried underneath all the other speculation. But if ever it did happen, where it's like, yeah, we know what's going to happen, and then they just lose interest, it's like, you kind of like you failed as a writer. It's like, you didn't do what you were supposed to do.
Well, I guess what I have to say about narrative series is that I don't know if I would be a good enough writer to do that, or I don't know if I would have enough willpower to do that, because I think with self-contained episodes, it's like you can just go, oh, let's go on vacation this episode. But I think that I have to give you kudos because wait, I have a question.
Yeah.
In the series that you're working on now, do you have the ending in mind?
No, I really don't. That's
okay.
That's that's the thing. You're supposed to do that with movies. You're supposed to do that with movies, and it's not a movie. I have a general idea of what I like the ending to be. Well, actually, never mind. Actually, I can't even say that because it's like, I guess it really depends on how I feel. Whether I want it to be a good ending, a bad ending, happy ending, sad ending, whether I want the main character to die or not. I don't know. It's like, it really depends. But I don't think that it's important to always have the ending in mind, at least when it comes to TV shows. Because it's like, for example, an example I like to give is Breaking Bad. It has probably one of the best endings. I mean, it has one of the best endings in any TV show. But what they did, they set themselves up very well. So they wrote the episode an episodic format as any TV show would. And what they did is that they started the first episode of the last season with this scene where it's like Heisenberg. I mean, everyone should. I encourage. I'm not going to give any spoilers, but I'm just going to say this.
Maybe you should say spoiler alert. Don't watch this if you don't want to hear it.
Well, yeah, I guess so. Go ahead 5 seconds. Go ahead 5 minutes. I mean, but it started out with Heisenberg or Walter White. Riding into the parking lot of a Denny's. He goes in and he talks, and then it's it reveals he puts the bacon on his eggs in the shape of 52, harkening back to the first episode. He's 52 years old. It's basically a year and a half ahead in the future. It's like a flash forward, and he talks away just a little bit, and it's he basically suggests to the audience that he's going to get his revenge. We don't really know what he means by that. But then he walks towards his car. He opens up the trunk, and then we see just this huge machine gun. And then he looks down at it, and then he looks up, and then he closes it. And I remember watching behind the scenes type thing, and the writers were like, we had no idea what he was gonna do. We just gave him a gun, and at the end of the series, he used it.
That's good. Well, actually, that was a spoiler for me because I never watched it. But I didn't
tell you how he used it.
Okay. Well, yeah, I think that's interesting. I never thought about whether you would have the end of the story in mind or not. But I do have to say this about. Let me give you my thoughts on series that are all self-contained stories. I look at some of my favorite series, like the classic Tom and Jerry, Looney Tunes. SpongeBob hasn't ended yet, but Regular Show. I think Regular Show had a finale. I didn't watch it. But a lot of these shows that aren't overarching stories, they just kind of end without any real ending. And the last episode is just a random story. So I think that is one of the drawbacks of not having you don't get any closure. But I think it is sometimes closer to real life because like if you think about the different stories and narratives in your life, like, you know, who you're friends with in grade school or whatever, there's no real ending. You just move away one day or whatever. I don't know, but I think that those are my thoughts on that.
I just looked up the top rated episode of South Park, and it's the episode where Eric Cartman feeds some kid his parents.
Oh, yeah. I saw that when I was like 12. That was crazy.
Yeah, it's pretty messed up, and all the comments are like, you know, this is basically just like, this episode's great because Eric Cartman's so effed up.
Yeah. It's like, I think it's because he sells this 16-year-old kid. Oh, spoiler alert. Not really. This 16-year-old kid, like Cartman's 8 or whatever, and the 16-year-old sells Cartman his pubic hair for 16.
Yeah.
And Cartman's like, hey guys, I got my pubes before you did. Like, haha. And they're like, dude, like, that's not how it works. So then he starts freaking out.
Yeah.
And he tries to get this kid back, and the kid is just like, you know, giving him a hard time and bullying him. So he ends up. Did you ever see it?
I did see it, and I was pretty like, what the F? You know, I was pretty like,
Yeah.
I was pretty surprised at just how low Eric Cartman could go. Because it's like, I think it was like a double twist where it's like, he was part of like some chili eating contest.
Yeah.
And the contest was like, see who can eat the most chili, or something like that. And apparently, like, there was this whole behind the scenes thing. Oh yeah, and there was also like a part of it where it's like they got the band Radiohead to be in like part of the party that they threw, and then they were like, and then like Eric Cartman like manipulated them to call the kid gay or something. It was super messed up. It was super messed up. As like, you know, South Park goes.
He dubbed his voice over the band Radiohead, and he showed. So
Yeah.
that's fun. Yeah.
Yeah, Eric Cartman is probably like one of the most evil characters ever coming into television.
Yeah. Yeah.
Super messed up. Alright, so we're still good on time. Alright, so I think we can finish this podcast up a little bit less head heavy, a little bit more enjoyable. Namely, let's talk about, I don't know, I was hoping they would just pop in my head before I actually said it.
You're like, please just pop into my head.
Exactly.
Like,
namely,
and then it's like, it's not there.
It's not there. Yeah, exactly. It's not there. Oh boy. Let's talk about like some like, I don't know, memes or something like that.
Well, do you want to talk about the Halloween podcast or save that for?
You know, I'm happy to hype it up, but I'm basically saying nothing more than we have a special guest, and that's all I'm saying.
Yeah, it's an awesome guest.
Yeah, it's very awesome.
Yeah. So if you're listening to this, and you're not a robot, like, it's gonna be great.
Yeah, if you're not a robot, but if you are a robot, like and subscribe. Comment what was your favorite part of the video, and the comments, just like beep beep boop boop beep. It's like in Morse code.
Yeah, that'd be funny. Oh, by the way, I have a cartoon related thing that I did. So this past week, my friend, I forget what we were talking about, but we have a group chat, and I just was like getting into using the voice memo thing where you click the thing and just talk, and then it sends your recording of your voice. And so I was, as a joke, my friend was telling me a few days ago that he wasn't doing his homework, and he's like, I just do it at the last minute, and as long as I can get it done by the last minute, that's fine. So as a joke, I recorded like 10 different recordings of 10 different cartoon characters telling my friend to do his homework. Like, I was like, hello, Joseph, it's me, Mario, your mama and the papa. They tell me that you don't do your homework. And then I did one of Cartman where it's like, hey, Joe, what is up, bro? Your homework, I just had to call. even though I'm very mean and rude on my TV show, that's just an act, and I really do my homework.
Okay, is that like some thug version of Eric Cartman?
Yeah, it wasn't a good impression, but I did like Santa Claus calling him and telling him to do his homework.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I guess whatever gets the job done. I'm not that outgoing, so I feel like I would just like, if I were to try that, I would probably just delete it.
Yeah, I want to keep them recorded though. They're kind of funny.
Yeah, good little mementos.
Yeah.
Good little mementos. I do feel like spilling the beans a little bit about what because this isn't the first time we talked about it. A little bit about this little idea for animation that Dave was talking about for mine. We were working on me and a few other people actually were working on we're trying to work on a web series to post on YouTube, and try to get that YouTube shmoney. But things certainly fell by the wayside ever since the pandemic started and since school started up again. So it's really on the back burner for now. But what
I actually think that after the pandemic happened, it started to kind of speed up a little bit.
Really?
Yeah, because we got on Zooms and we did a lot. We did more meetings than we... I think it slowed down, though, because we had to do school.
Yeah, that's true.
But I think the crazy thing about animation is, like, I had, like, 2 projects that I'm still working on one project, and it's, like, the only reason that I put my other project on the back burner is that I have schoolwork.
All right. Oh, yeah. That's pretty much how it goes. It's hard to actually focus on your own personal creative stuff, even in our college. Yeah, and and still actually have a degree, I guess. Yeah. But it's all you were saying?
Oh, I wasn't saying anything.
All
I was
right.
just saying that I'm sorry that you lost the debate, but...
Well, you know what? We have an 8-ball to tell us, the magic 8-ball to tell us. So, great magic 8-ball. I'm typing it right now. All right. Who has won this debate? Who has won this debate? Not debate. Hold on a second. All right. Oh, great 8-ball. Oh, great mystic magic8ball.com. Who has won this debate? Okay, I'm shaking it right now. It says, my sources say no. Computer says no. Oh my god. Well, everybody, I guess you're just going to have to wait till the next episode to find out. Hopefully we'll be able to have a debate like this in the future. Maybe we'll just talk about some other stuff. But thank you so much for watching. The outro music should have been started by now. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, do all that jazz to make sure that the algorithm recognizes us. And you have yourself a safe day.